All right, all right. Let's see here, guys. Sorry, I'm having too many things on my screen right now. Okay, so let's dive in. Welcome everybody to our February team call. I know that technically tomorrow is February 1st, but I didn't want to be like a week into the month and have our kickoff call for the month. So plus, as you guys all know, it's baby month for me. So who knows when this baby's coming. So I wanted to make sure I took advantage of the fact that she is not here yet and kicked tonight's team call off. But seriously, so excited. I cannot believe it's already February. Like, what in the world? But we're here. We made it. I guess that's what I'm saying because I'm having a child this month, but I made it. Praise the Lord. Shay made it. We've got like 3 girls having babies this month on our team. So, but we made it. And I'm really excited just about everything that's happening this month with the Love Your Body boot camp. And I know some of you've got other little boot camps going on and happening. So just super pumped. So wanted to really quickly just touch on our team calendar for the month. If you haven't seen it, it's pinned in the team page. Also, I posted the calendar. We actually just started getting a calendar from Beachbody with everything that's happening within Body, as well as the promotions that are happening this month. So I just got that today. So I will also pin that in our team page. I'll probably also put it in the comments of this post, just so you guys have it. But be sure to check that, because a lot of times we don't get those calendars until like the day before the new month. But I wanted to get you guys like, here's our action hours and things we have happening this month. So make sure that you guys get these action hours on your calendar, because if you are new here, success leaves clues. And if you want to know how to be consistent in this business, how to be disciplined, how to show up, how to be an amazing coach, come learn from these girls, because they're doing it. And this month we have a few new girls who are leading team calls, which is just going to be so cool, just to get to hear their style, because everyone kind of has a different way of doing things. And I think that's kind of the beauty of it. You're going to see lots of different trackers, lots of different ways that we show up, but all consistently. So that is happening, as well as just a reminder about our Wednesday morning, 6:30 a.m. Business builder check-in calls. I know it's like super early, but I'm telling you guys, like showing up and checking in with your goals weekly is really, really good accountability. So try to make those a priority. We're going to keep them 30 minutes, but we're going to keep those going. And Ashton's a rock star. And so once baby comes, she's going to kind of lead those for a few weeks until I kind of get into a rhythm with adding another one. So that's happening. And then really quickly too, just a reminder that this Friday, the promo code for the 24 hours of free Body expires. So try to get those out and in the hands of your people and get them to use it before this Friday. If you haven't done that, jump on that. I did a post on the team page all about how easy it is. I sent it to a few people today who had replied to my newsletter saying they wanted to try it. So just send follow-ups, make sure you get those people plugged in. I don't want them to be disappointed when they go to use it and it's expired. So let's try to make sure we remind them. And let's see what else. And then also just a reminder about the promo codes we have for Total Solution packages this month. All of you should get your codes tomorrow. So let me know if you don't. It's just an amazing deal. So make sure you jump on that. All right, so quick little celebration of team volume this week. So far, this past week, Aaron at 463. For those of you who are new here and you're like, what is team volume? I've never heard of this. Obviously, everything that we sell has a volume number attached to it. And that's really important to me, because it's one thing for us to celebrate Success Club, which we're going to do next. But there's a lot of coaches on this team who are helping people, in their health and fitness journey by plugging them into a year of Body, or plugging them into, using Energize every month as a part of their regimen of something they're already doing, or, they're helping people start to make these switches and make these changes in ways that aren't necessarily always the Total Solution pack. Obviously, we really believe that is the answer. But I want to celebrate those people too, because that's huge. Like, they're consistently helping people. Their retention is high month over month. They're helping people not just start, but stay on the path and stay on the journey. And that's really important. And so that's what volume really means, is that every month they're continuing to help people, which is really important. And then obviously our top recruiters from this past week, Erica, okay, I see you with 4 people, 4 new coaches this past week. That's what's up. And Lauren with 1, and Glenda, I'm guessing that's Ashton's mama, and Tamara. So way to go, guys. Keep just moving the needle. I love it. And then Changing Lives Club, obviously this was as of last Thursday. So I know that these numbers have probably gone up a ton even over the weekend. But don't take your foot off the gas. Tonight is the last day of the month. So like, after this team call, if you need to stay on Zoom with some of the other girls and, follow up with people, get those share cards out, get them plugged in. It sounds silly, but really, truly consistently hitting Success Club month over month will be what moves your business forward. Having that new blood in your challenge groups, it's going to get you excited as a coach. It's going to get your other girls excited, because they're starting to fall off the bandwagon and they see new girls come in and they're like, oh man, that energy. So just keep showing up, keep getting that new blood in your challenge groups, because it's going to give you a lot of joy along the way. So. All right. I'm going to throw it over to Ashton. Ashton's going to be kind of like emceeing our call tonight, so to speak. I'll let her introduce you guys to Jared and all that good stuff.
All right. So y'all know we are super pumped to have Jared. We are so thankful. Our very own body cycle super trainer, so freaking pumped. If y'all have not done a class with Jared, you will 100% go find a bike in the morning and do one after this call. Because if you've done any of his rides, he's full of motivation. He's always spitting freaking fire and always talking about getting that bread. I don't know how many texts I have gotten that says, what is with getting that bread? And Kim holding up a loaf of bread is the best thing I've ever seen. She's the whole time. But Jared actually lost 100 pounds on the bike himself. So he is a success story himself, became a cycle trainer, has since joined BOD. We love to see him on the screen. I actually feel like you've even lost weight since you've been on the screen. Like, we could see you continuing your journey even while you're teaching classes, which is great. Did an Ironman last year, freaking crushed it. And we are just so excited to hear your story and some of your encouragement tonight. So thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you. And first of all, to all the expecting mothers on the call, apparently, congratulations to you guys. Like, that's amazing. But yeah, like, honestly, I'm just like so honored and humbled that you all even asked or are interested in me joining the call. So, thank you again so much. I'm really excited for this.
So pumped. So tonight, girls, is going to kind of be like interview question asked. So I've got a few things we're going to start out with, but if you have any pressing questions or anything you want to know, just drop it in the chat and we'll make sure we get everything answered. But we're going to start out, Jared, with just kind of your story. So let's go back 100 pounds ago. Where were you? What got you started? What even got you motivated to hop on the bike?
Yeah. So it's funny. So a little bit of backstory. So, I was always overweight pretty much my entire life. I was always into team sports. I played baseball and hockey and a little bit of football growing up, but never really pictured myself as a cyclist. Being in LA, there's like a constant battle between cyclists and drivers. So I didn't always necessarily have the best outlook on cyclists, especially with the whole spandex thing. So I just like to set the table. Like, I never expected to ever be in this position that I'm in. So a couple of years ago, I was, about 100 pounds overweight, and I used to play flag football in LA. It was like a contact flag football league. And I just kept hurting my hamstring, like 3 or 4 times within like a month and a half period. I just like pulled my hamstring really bad. And I went to the doctor, and my doctor was just like, hey, like, you have a really bad hamstring tear, you have to do, or I don't know if it was necessarily a tear, but just really bad injury. And he was basically like, the only way that you're going to recover is if you do something that's low impact and can strengthen your soft tissue, right? So he was like, jump on a bike, do something that's low impact for a month and a half, and I'll see you back and we'll sort of go from there. And I had done a spin class before. One of my former clients was actually an owner of a cycle gym. And I took one of her classes years ago, and I left that thing just like, I'm never going to do this ever again. But because my doctor was like, okay, you got to do something. I was a member of LA Fitness at the time. I never really went. And they had a cycle room because they had cycle classes. I was like, okay, like I don't want to do that. I'm just going to go in the room by myself a couple of days a week and see where things go. And so I committed to myself that I would go for 6 days a week for the first month to rehab. And after that first month, I lost 20 pounds. And I was like, wow, like I was not a believer to that point. And after that first month, I was like, well, if I can lose 20 pounds in a month, let's see how far I can take this thing. And 6 months later, I lost 100 pounds and like totally 180 the direction of my life. It was honestly crazy. And there were some other things like light bulb moments sort of along the way. Right around that time as well, I was at home one day, I wanted to have lunch, and I opened up the fridge, and I noticed that there were 4 different pizza boxes from 4 different restaurants. And it was like right around that same time. And I was like, something's got to change here because like I'm eating pizza way too much. And so like it became a diet thing and a fitness thing as well. And it was funny because I had just changed companies I was working for that around the same time as well. And after I lost the weight, I had actually seen one of my former coworkers in like just out and about. And I was like having a conversation with her. And 5 minutes into the conversation, she was like, Jared, is that you? And so like, she didn't even like recognize me, which was like the crazy thing where like, that was like the moment where I was like, wow, like I knew I had lost 100 pounds, but like, I hadn't realized the scope of how different I looked until that conversation. So that's like the short version of the very intense 6-month story on sort of how I got into cycling.
That's awesome. And you went viral, right? Like you got pretty famous from your story too.
It was an interesting thing because everything sort of snowballed, right? It started with me. It's funny, like you talk about like a domino effect. It started with me pulling my hamstring to eventually losing the weight. And then, you know, so I was in LA Fitness every single day, and they were like, wow, like they basically took notice and they were like, you know, this guy lost 100 pounds. Like, let's see if he wants to teach classes. And originally I pushed back. I was, you know, it wasn't really my thing. I had a full career. But I was like, you know what, like I'm here anyway. I might as well like make a couple bucks or whatever on the side. And so I got into that. And then while that was happening, as I was just getting into cycle training and teaching, a friend of mine knew somebody who worked at Men's Health magazine. And they had posted on Facebook, like, does anybody know anybody who has lost a bunch of weight? And so my friend reached out to her friend and was like, hey, I know this guy that lost 100 pounds. Men's Health ended up interviewing me. They wrote like a little article about, you know, how I had made the transformation. And then at the time, it was maybe like 6 months after that, CNN also saw that story and they wanted to interview me. And they did like a whole, like they sent like camera people out here to like interview me. They did like a whole health like segment on me. And then along with that, basically somebody who wasn't necessarily even supposed to be on that camera shoot was also just happened to be in LA at the time that worked for CNN. And she did like articles and more like written form of things like that. And so she wrote an article because she had like sat in on the video interview, and that article was like #1 on Apple News when that got published. So it's just like these crazy situations that like I never expected any of it to happen, and it all just kind of like I said, it just snowballed. And like it's hard to like it's hard to put it into context how crazy it is, because like, I'm just like, I view myself as just like this, like I say it all the time. I'm just like a kid from Detroit. Like I moved out to LA, like, I had my own, I still have like my career that I work my 9 to 5, but it's interesting how like this other side of me is sort of like blown up unintentionally. So, and I'm just kind of riding the wave and seeing where it goes.
That's legit. That's you
Yeah.
literally like getting hurt, like set up this whole thing for you, which is just insane.
It's wild. Like, I mean, I have to like pinch myself. I'm like humbled by it every single day, because it's hard to conceptualize like every single step of the way, these things that have happened. I just like I'll put it this way. Some people in the fitness industry chase this sort of thing, right? They chase the stardom, the whole like celebrity, I guess, aspect of fitness training. And for me, it just kind of happened, right? Like I had never expected to be in the fitness industry until, this sort of snowball. So like, I'm just like, I'm loving it. And just like, I'll never take any of it for granted, just because it's just been such an awesome experience. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
Well, we're thankful you're famous, because now you're on our team call.
Well, that's the other thing. Like I don't view my, like, I'll put it this way. So like people message me on Instagram sometimes and they'll be like, thank you so much for responding. And I'm just like, I don't view it like that. I'm just like a normal dude who like, I live for this. Like, I love to have like these conversations. I love to coach people. Like that's, in my mind, fitness in this whole arena is like the most selfless profession that you can have, because at the end of the day, like you're in it to help people and help people get to their goals. It has nothing to do with me. It's all about like helping the most people possible. And that's really what I take from this whole thing is my ability, or my, I guess like Beachbody has allowed me to help more people, through this whole process. So I'm just loving that part.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So you lost 100 pounds on the bike, but I just started biking in October for the first time like ever. And I'm learning it's like running discipline. Like just to keep your legs going, you have to learn how to dig deep in the middle of a ride. So what do you feel like discipline and mindset that you've gained just from your journey?
I was thinking about that actually this morning. I think that there's such an interesting thing about the bike compared to any other, well, I guess running as well, but the resistance knob is always right there in front of you. So it's almost like if you're climbing a hill, it's like the resistance knob is almost like taunting you. Like, you know what I mean? Like you can turn it down at any point, and having the discipline to like stay in it and fight the urge to turn it down and fight through that hill climb. Like, I think I think that speaks volume to anybody who can like finish a workout. And even if you do have to turn it down, that's totally fine. Like we always want to make sure we're adjusting if we have to, but I just think that like being able to persevere in the face of that constant urge to turn it down is just such an awesome thing for me. But I mean, as far as like discipline, I think a lot of it for me personally was just finding a passion for it. Like I never expected to love it, but I do. Like being able to, no matter if I'm having a terrible day, if I'm having a great day, like having the bike always there to disconnect, to decompress from everything. It's really my outlet. And obviously not only the physical aspect, but the mental aspect as well. Like I can just let loose and dance it out and jam to some music really quick for 30 to 45, however long. And it's really like my safe space. I talk about it all the time. Like it's really my place to like just block everything else out. I can do this. And when it comes to discipline, like, I look forward to it. It doesn't necessarily have to be a chore or a challenge or something like that.
Yeah, that's awesome. The bike is definitely a whole different game than anything else a lot of us has ever done. And it's so good. So I heard you, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say also, like, obviously, like I got into road cycling as well. And the thing about indoor cycling is that you can manipulate that resistance at any point, right? So you'll get a better workout on the stationary bike than you will on a road bike, in my opinion. Like you can obviously like change things up and everything, but I think that's a really awesome thing, because like if you're trying to get a short workout and you want it to be really effective and really like get the most out of it, like it's right in your living room. And you don't have to like bike and like fight traffic and cars like I was talking about before. Now I'm one of those people that are, you know, weaving out of traffic, but yeah.
That's awesome. So all of us on here pretty much share our journey on Instagram or social media in some sort of platform. So how do you feel like, how was it for you to start to get in the public eye, or like having your journey out there for other people to see?
That's a great question. And honestly, I'm still learning. This is not my forte. Like, so like, I'll tell you. So, you know, I'm a big fan of, and I think it's obvious if you follow my Instagram, like I love promoting people and like like if somebody tags me and says, I just did this workout, I want to promote that, right? Like whether it's good or not, for like my stories are sometimes crazy, whatever, like I get it. But like in my mind, like it kind of goes back to what I was talking about before. Like I want to make sure that I'm touching and interacting with as many people as possible and promoting them on their journey, because as somebody who went through that, like obviously I had my own support system, but if somebody who, like I put myself in my shoes 4 years ago, you know, if I posted something and like if somebody else reshared it or whatever, like that would motivate me so much. And that's just like kind of the way I look at it. So as far as, you know, social media, like I'm just kind of going with the flow. I guess I haven't really taken a second to think about like all the people who are viewing my stuff. But I'm trying to just be as positive about it as possible. And like I said, I don't know all the tricks. Like some people, like I literally like 2 weeks ago, I learned how to make a reel. Like I had no idea how to make a reel on Instagram. So I'm just like, you know, it's a new, you know, it's a learning process for me as well.
It's ever changing. I think we're all always learning, but
Yeah.
And you've talked about even on your rides that you weren't a huge fan of being in front of the camera, and like you were nervous when you first started teaching on body.
Yeah. I mean, I think it was pretty evident, and I'm still like not totally comfortable on camera. It scares the crap out of me. Like when I'll tell you, so like when we first were launching body, like they had everybody do like a short like 30-second video about themselves, just like selfie version, whatever. And like just saying like your name, a little bit about yourself, and like what makes your class a little bit different. And I did it outside because I don't have a ton of natural light in my townhouse. And so I did it outside near like some bushes or whatever. And I was literally out there I'm not lying, I was out there probably for an hour, just like re-recording, like just because like I didn't know how to talk to the camera. I'm still like not totally comfortable, but like it's just funny how you go from that, and then like the more you do it, the more comfortable you get. And now I at least feel like I'm kind of, you know, getting my groove a little bit. But like if you go back to my first couple classes, like I've watched them a couple of times, I'm just like, oh man, like I'm stuttering, like I don't really know what I'm thinking. And honestly, the podcast has been so awesome for me personally, because I'm used to teaching to a class. So like being able to interact with the people on the podcast and hype them up and all of that has really helped me personally overcome that fear of cameras and everything. Because I get to see the reactions, and I get to, you know, have that it isn't necessarily communication, but like being able to like interact and see what's working and what's not. So like you guys have helped me as, you know, just as much. That's the way I look at it. So
That's awesome.
mm-hmm.
So you went from 100 pounds overweight to just completing your first Ironman. Like, how do you even connect the dots?
Yeah, and again, we were kind of talking about it a little bit earlier, but it's the same sort of snowball. It's just like, for me personally, the way that I've sort of like tracked my fitness journey is that like I set a goal, I hit that goal, and then it's like, what's next type of deal, right? So I was teaching classes at LA Fitness at the time. There were maybe 20 to 30 people per class. And one of my students was like, I'm doing this sprint triathlon. You should do it with me. And it was the same type of thing where I pushed back. I was like, not really my thing. I'm only the cyclist. I hate running. I mentioned earlier before, I barely knew how to swim. But I was like, you know what? It's like not that long. It's whatever. So I trained on my own, didn't know what I was doing. And I did the race with her. And it kind of brought me back to like my high school, like team sports days, and that I was able to get out my like competitive, sort of like competitive juices flowing. Right. So fell in love with the sprint triathlon. And so a couple months later, there was actually a Olympic distance triathlon here in Malibu. So like, okay, I'll like sort of like keep going with that. So I did that. And then it was just like, what's next? Right. So I signed up for the half Ironman, and that was right before COVID. And so the half Ironman ended up getting canceled and pushed out to the next year. And I was just sitting there, and, everybody's sort of locked inside, and I'm like, I'm not just going to like sit inside for a year. I want to make sure that I'm like continuing to move and like all these things. Right. So I was like, you know what, if I have a year to train for this half Ironman, I'm just going to go all in and do everything I can. So I trained for that, like basically 11 months, did the half Ironman, and then 2.5 months later did the full Ironman. So I kind of like crescendoed into this thing. So it was a crazy experience. And to be totally honest, I wasn't sure what I was getting myself into. Like I talked to my girlfriend about it when I was thinking about it. I was like, like this is gonna be a big time commitment. Like, are you on board? And I'm lucky to have her. She's my rock. And she was just like, yeah, like, I'll support you and all this. But I don't think either of us really knew. Like, it's literally 2 days for like 11 months straight, waking up before the sun gets up, and then, going to sleep after the sun gets down. So, but that being said, like, there's like, it was a lot, but there's so many lessons that I took from it, and lessons that like I couldn't really conceptualize until you go through something like that and work that hard for like one singular moment of crossing the finish line. And it could be anything like that was my goal. Right. But like, it could be any big goal like that. Once you like dive wholeheartedly into one goal for that long and you finally get there, like I cried like the second I crossed the finish line. I was dead tired, and like I was crying, and like it was the emotions just behind that moment. Like I think back to whenever I'm like in a really tough situation, I go back to that moment. I'm just like, if you can do that, you can do anything. And it's sort of like this continuing thing with me, where it's like, anytime I'm in a tough situation, I can go and lean on that and say, I did this, like, why is this situation, that much different or giving me that much more trouble? So, and I think everybody can have that. Like, it doesn't have to be an Ironman. It could be like literally anything. So, yeah, it was crazy.
That's legit.
Mm-hmm.
How do you gain the confidence to do something like that? Like, how do you even push yourself towards trying it?
To me, it's a slow build, right? Like, it didn't happen overnight. Like, if you were to tell, like, I used to joke about it. Like, I would go biking with my friends after I had made this transformation. I would go road biking with my friends. And like one time we did a century ride, which was 100 miles. And we get back and I'm just dead tired. And I was like joking with one of my friends. I was like, okay, like, let's go run a marathon. What do you guys think? Like thinking like I could never do that ever in a million years. And then I signed up for the thing, and like, luckily my support system, and then also my coach, like preparing me, like giving me constant support and knowing that I can do this every single step of the way and putting me in the best situation to succeed. I mean, that's where that confidence comes from. It's a slow, steady build, and it's not necessarily like always like the sexiest workout that's the most beneficial, right? It's like the workout that you do repetitively over and over and over again, changing little things, and that small incremental growth will lead to monumental results and results that you would never even expect that you could ever achieve. And one day you just wake up and it's just like, you can do this type of deal.
Do you feel like that feeling and the slow growth over time has seeped out into the rest of your life too, like outside of fitness?
Absolutely. I mean, it just like, it teaches you patience at the end of the day. Like this, I feel like culture and society breeds like and for me, like it's interesting because like it's sort of this like dichotomy where it's like I lost 100 pounds very quickly in 6 months. I had to totally change my lifestyle, and that's what worked for me. But 99 times out of 100, I know that that's not necessarily the case. So it's like this dichotomy of like knowing that things can change very quickly, but also being patient and knowing that like just because you don't see results necessarily overnight, that if you are doing the right things and putting yourself in the right situations, that success can come and you can achieve whatever goal you put in front of yourself.
Boom. Nailed it.
Yeah.
You're like a new wave Goggins, like legit. Didn't he lose? He lost like 300 pounds like that.
That book literally, like I read that
So
right
good.
after I had my transformation, and like that was one of the things I leaned on at that time, because if anybody's or if nobody's ever read the book Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins, like this guy had every single like card stacked against him in the deck, and like if you read that book, it will change your perspective on like what is possible and what's not possible, and what's not possible is like there's very little things that are not possible. It's crazy. Highly
He's like
recommend.
untouchable
It's
mental toughness.
it's crazy. Like it's unbelievable. Yeah, that's you try to come up with a different word, and like that's literally the only one that like you can really describe it. It's just like it's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's absolutely unbelievable. So you were talking about a support system. Like, how do you feel like that was important to your journey and your success?
100%. I mean, at the end of the day, there's like, nobody is going to want to do something every single day and have that commitment. Like, even if you love something, like I love cycling, there's days where I don't want to get on the bike, and obviously they're few and far between, but like for me, even running, like once you like go for a long run and then the next day you have to do like a shorter run or something like that, like there's days that I didn't want to get up, and having my support system, my girlfriend was like always there in my corner, and it really worked out for the both of us because we were there to push each other, right? There's days where she didn't want to do her thing and I was able to push her, and vice versa. But just having a coach there, like you think, oh, you know, there's a misconception. Even professional athletes, obviously, like, professional athletes have been doing their sport for years on years on years, and they still have coaches, right? So like there's no limit on like the level that you get to where you don't need a coach or don't need to lean on somebody. It's so important, and even just to have like a second pair of eyes on something, make sure that you're on the right trajectory. It's huge.
So on the days you don't want to show up, what do you tell yourself? What do you make yourself do? What does that look like?
I think that having a why is so important. And it's something that I probably should have talked about a little bit before, but like having a reason why you show up and why you do something. It sounds cliche, but it's so true. Like that's like the number one driver in everything that I do is my why, right? So my why has sort of like changed over time. For me personally, it started off as very selfish, right? Like I wanted to heal my hamstring. I wanted to lose weight. Right after, and this is a little bit of a peek behind the curtain, right after I lost the 100 pounds, like literally right around that time. So my family, the men in my family have a bad history of heart problems. Like pretty much every man on my dad's side of the family has passed away or had a heart attack in their late 30s. And so right after I lost the weight, my dad actually had heart issues and he had to have open heart surgery. Luckily, he's okay now, but seeing him go through that and like flying back to Michigan and like going to the hospital, and like I had a moment while I was at the hospital like after his surgery, I was just like, this could be me if I don't keep this up. Like it's a very real possibility. And so like that was like ingrained in my mind that if I don't keep this thing going, like things can very easily slip in the opposite direction. So that was obviously been a huge why since then. And then also like as my classes started to grow, it began to be a why am I doing this for other people, right? So like my students losing 20, 30 pounds, changing their lives. And And that's what I lean on. Like, if I'm not leading by example, like I'm not one of these people that's just going to go out and like teach a class and say, you should do this and that sort of thing. Like, my style has always been like, live the way that you're presenting yourself to be, right? So like, there's obviously days that I don't want to work out and things like that, but like, if I'm expecting and if I'm pushing the people around me to live a certain type of way, then I want to do that as well. I'm not just going to fake it. So yeah, and I think authenticity is so huge, right? Like, I've sort of harped on it a little bit before with like social media and things like that, but like, the coolest thing that you can be, especially in this day and age, is authentic and be true to yourself, because there's a million distractions and things pulling you in different, directions and things like that. And if you're authentic to yourself and you're authentic to your why, then you can do great things and things that you would never expect that you'd be able to do.
Mic drop again. So if you were going to say to us, like, if some of us on this call are really just kind of at a standstill, or we feel like things just aren't moving, or our fitness journey isn't going where we're going, how do we take a step out of our comfort zone? Like, how do you encourage us to take a step in a different direction? I'm throwing a curveball at you.
Yeah. I think that, again, it goes back to your why, but also you got to think about where you're at, what your routine is now, and what scares you, right? Because if you can find something that scares you, and I talked about it a little bit, I had like an Instagram post about it today, right? Like, for me, I hated running. Like, I hated it. there's like, it was the worst. Like, I'd get out of breath. Like, I remember like distinctly having to run the mile in like 5th grade. And I was just like the slowest kid, didn't know what the heck I was doing. Like, I literally like had nightmares going up to that day. So like, for me, running was the worst. And like, what I feel like the way that I grow the most and the way that I push myself the most is by getting uncomfortable and trying new things. Right. So like, getting on camera, although it's very uncomfortable for me, that's where I know that if I do it enough and I can adapt and grow, like, that's going to be the best for me. Right. And I'll tell you another story that I was planning on like telling in one of my classes in the future. But like, so I had mentioned that heights and cameras are my biggest fears. Right. So the camera thing, like, obviously we talked about that, but a couple of years ago, it was like 8 or 9 years ago, I went bungee jumping in New Zealand. And there's nothing like being terribly afraid of heights and going bungee jumping. So the interesting about that, unlike skydiving, like, you're not getting rolled out of the plane, like, you're not attached to anybody. You have to be the one to jump. And so that was really what kind of like ignited my fire, where I was standing at the edge of this like cable car, basically, like shaking, and I had to find the will, the ability to jump. And like, being able to actually do that, like, I know it's a little bit different than the whole camera thing, but like, just being able to like overcome that fear, it's just another situation where you're like, okay, like, that's my biggest fear, and I just did that. So like, what's next? What else can I do? And so like, finding those things that scare you, it's sort of like, to go back to it, finding those things that scare you, jump into it, dive in. Like, even if it's even if it's a small thing, it doesn't have to be a huge thing like bungee jumping, but like, even if it's just like getting up an hour earlier, it's uncomfortable, but if you do it, I promise you'll get something out of it, even if it's just like the mental toughness of being able to wake up a little bit earlier and not sleep in. So and by the way, sleep is very important. That was just an example.
It seems like I see a trend with you you love holding on to a moment that made you feel strong and that made you feel encouraged in that moment to go back to when times are tough. And I feel like that's something like that can't be taken away from you when you complete something like that. And you always have that moment to go back to when your business is hard or your fitness journey is hard or anything is stagnant. You can always look back and say, I did a freaking Ironman. Like, I don't even know how much that is, but you ran all these miles and you biked like, you can do anything.
Right. Yeah. So, well, just for those who don't know, an Ironman is a 2.4 mile swim, 112 mile bike, and then a marathon after. So it's like 140.6 miles total. Oh, am I losing you guys?
No, can you hear us?
Okay, cool. Sorry, my internet's a little bit shaky sometimes. But yeah, so I'll give you a prime example of this, right? So during my Ironman, it was crazy experience. So like you would think an Ironman is a difficult thing to begin with. During my race, it was pouring rain, like literally thunderstorms. So it was just like not just like a drizzle, it was literal thunderstorm. So like I'm biking around the island of Cozumel, and on my second lap, I get in a bike accident because there's puddles everywhere. And I think it's just like a regular puddle that I was going over, because I've been over like a million of them throughout the day. Turned out it was a huge pothole, and hit this pothole, flew off my bike at like 20 miles per hour, messed up my bike. My aero bars were like in another direction, and I had to bike the final 40 some odd miles, whatever, with a broken bike, and like had like road rash all up and down my side, whatever. But I had to adapt in that day, right? Like things weren't going to go according to plan. I had to figure out a way, like whatever excuse I had in my mind, like I could come up with a million excuses to tap out or whatever, but like I wasn't going to let that happen. Like I needed to finish that race. And so I ended up doing it, but I leaned on that moment. I'll tell you a little behind the scenes story. I get a lot of flack for counting down kind of slow during my classes. It is what it is. But a couple of weeks ago, I'll give you a little bit of a peek behind the curtain. So December 30th, I was supposed to teach a class. It was the day before New Year's, and I ended up getting COVID and wasn't able to teach the class. But I really, really like that playlist. And the way that things go behind the scenes is you have to submit your playlist like a couple of weeks in advance. So I wasn't able to teach that class, but I like talked to the production team. I was like, hey, like January 21st, like, is there any way that we can put my December 30th playlist in for January 21st and then move that playlist out to February? Got the approval, all good. So I'm practicing my playlist, and I get to the studio, and we're doing sound check like 4 minutes before live on January 21st. And I have my earpiece in, and the music starts playing to do the sound check. And it was the playlist that was originally for January 21st. And so I hadn't practiced that playlist. I hadn't like done anything. Like, you know, you get so in the zone on one thing. And so they played the other playlist. And by that time it was too late. So I had to do the original playlist. I hadn't had any notes on that playlist at all. So I had to like totally wing that class. And in that moment where you're like listening to a different playlist, like literally 20 seconds before, sorry, my dog just walked in, 20 minutes before live, and you're just like, there's a million emotions. People are running around, like nobody really knows what's going to happen. And I was sitting there on the bike, and I was like, okay, this is what I love to do. I love to teach these classes. And I thought back to the moment during my Ironman. I was like, I got thrown off my bike at 20 miles per hour and I finished that race. I could teach a 30-minute class, you know, and just have fun, because that's what it's all about. And so like just being able to adapt and like deal with the situation and like compartmentalize, like this is the issue, this is how we're going to solve it and move forward. That's something that I definitely leaned on. So yeah, that was a crazy class, and I'll always remember that. And that's like another notch, like sort of like notch in my belt, where I'm like, okay, like that's probably the worst thing that could ever happen to me before going live in front of like hundreds of people and not even knowing what the class is going to be and being able to like freestyle and make it happen. And now that I've done that, like next time something bad, or not bad, but like next time something crazy happens that's off the wall, I can lean on this and be like, okay, like let's make it happen. Let's do it. Let's dive in. What can I do? So, yeah,
I did that ride this morning. I did that. And you were like, so things didn't go today as we planned.
Yeah, I was a little bit subtle. I wasn't sure if anybody caught that or whatever, but yeah, people were running around. Nobody knew like what way was up. It was an interesting, like probably three to 4 minutes before we went live. And like people were literally like, it was a madhouse, but we did it. And it was fun. Like it still had a great class. And I don't think many people would have noticed or taken note that was happening before the class
Yeah,
during the
no.
class if you didn't know behind the
I
scenes.
only know you said that now that you're putting it into context.
Yeah, 100%.
And now you're training for the 4x4x48, right?
Yes. So
Tell the people what it is.
yes. So 4x4x48, kind of talking about David Goggins. So every year he does like a challenge where you run 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours straight. So it's 48 miles over 2 days. And so I'm raising money for Pancreatic Cancer Action Network. And that's actually, we were talking about why earlier. That's another one of my whys. My grandfather passed away from pancreatic cancer like 12 years ago. And I've been raising money for that charity pretty much ever since. It's, it's a cancer, a form of cancer that not many people know that much about, even though it's the most deadly cancer, and people often don't notice of it until they know somebody who's affected by it. So I've been raising money for that charity for the last 12 years. They're doing running challenge like that before, so we'll see how it goes. But it's March 4th to the 6th, and I'm really excited for it.
That's got to be insane. You're kind of cutting out, so I hope you can hear us, but that has to be insane to do that many miles in 2 days. I don't know if you can hear us.
Can you hear me? Sorry about that.
No.
Sorry, my girlfriend walked in with her
AirPods.
Yeah.
Okay, we just have a
Sorry.
couple minutes left. Does anybody have any questions or anything they want to throw out? But yeah, the 4x4x48 seems super intimidating.
It's funny. Like, it's another one of those things where it's like I signed up and not really sure how it's gonna go, but you know what? If you like, I'm doing it for a reason, and like I wear this little thing. I wear this bracelet every single day. I'm not sure if anybody even like picked up in it in my classes. Like, it says fight pancreatic cancer. So like, that's one of those things where it's like, you can have a goal in mind and a why in mind, but throughout the course of the day, you can forget. And for me, like, this is a constant reminder. Like, I'll look down at my wrist and be like, this is why I'm fighting, type of deal. So like, I've been on long runs before where I'm just like dying and like want to go home, and I'll look down at my wrist, and like, it's just like a constant reminder for me that this is why I fight. This is why I do what I do. And it was the same thing. I wore it during my race in Cozumel for the Ironman. So, that's what works for me. If it's like a picture of your kids, or, picture of your, friends, or whatever it is for a why, I highly, highly encourage it, because I think we do need those reminders throughout the day.
That's awesome. We want to know how we can get on your podcast. You have to have some like behind the curtain tips.
So the podcast opens up 24 hours before the class. So usually the spots are open for my class. I've noticed about 3 to 4 hours. So I would check like Thursday at it's 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. Some people set alarms, I've heard. I don't have any access to change that. And actually last week there was like a little glitch in the system. So I got a bunch of messages about that, but yeah, I don't have any control. But that's my biggest recommendation is set an alarm for Thursday. And
Kim knows how to make the podcast. She's on every ride I've ever done.
Oh man, that girl has so many alarms, and
different colored bikes. I swear her bike looks different every time she's on the podcast.
She is, I swear people show up for her. They don't even show up for me. They just want to see where she goes the next class. She
is hilarious. Yeah, she wears all the themes, Caroline. And Caroline says the round table is blowing up, that everybody wants you to be the next program trainer.
Would
you do it?
Oh, like 100%. Like I said it before, like I live for this, and I've said it before, and like I feel like the secret's kind of out. Like, don't tell Carl this, but like I would do this for free. Like I love every second of this, right? Like I didn't know what I was getting myself into, but I've just been loving every single step of the way. It's been so much fun, and like just having the opportunity to help more people, like that's my goal. That's what I'm doing this for, type of deal. So I mean, I'm just humbled that people are actually like enjoying what I have to say, and it's just been a lot of fun. I did see the comment about favorite hat brand. I like, for all of my running shoes and the hats that I wear during my classes, I wear On Running. I don't know if I have a hat around. It's just ON Running. That's like what I use. Like those shoes they changed my perspective on running. But little peek behind the curtain, I'm getting Let's Get That Bread apparel and merch made. So that'll be out, and I'm getting the sample sent to me this week. So if anybody wants to check that out, stay tuned. It'll be again, who knew that this whole Let's Get That Bread thing would catch on? I'm just I'm loving it. It's so much fun. And, I'm just riding the wave and having a good time along the way. So if you want a hat, there's going to be a hat coming soon.
I love it. It's just, I don't know, you're such a testament to all of us as we're starting our journey or started our journey somewhere. You just showed up for yourself. You kept showing up. You leaned into the hard. And once you got somewhere, you looked for where else can I go? You didn't take the foot off the gas. You didn't say, okay, I lost 100 pounds. I freaking made it. That's huge in itself. And every step of the way, it seems like you're constantly looking where do I level up? Where do I go next? And that is just so inspiring for us who are trying to grow a business and trying to continue on our fitness journey and grow a family and provide. And, there's just so many different aspects in life that you have to continue to level up. And so we're truly inspired by you.
I appreciate that. It's just it's one of those things where I've been there this time in January when you set a New Year's resolution and you get 4 weeks in and you just go way too hard, way too fast, and it's not sustainable, and you end up giving up, right? I did that so many times where you give up. And I think that just creating a plan, sticking to it, and finding something that you love and having a purpose behind that will, if you have a purpose and you love it, there's little chance that you're not going to succeed in whatever your goal is. I think that those are the two most important things, and just keeping moving the ball forward. And once you hit that goal, just move on to the next thing, because just as easily or just as quickly as you can gain something, you can also lose it as well. And so just maintaining that same lifestyle and leveling up, I think, is huge.
Yeah. Any last thoughts, girls, before we wrap it up? Yeah, Alyssa was talking about those proud I did it moments. Yeah, and encouraging your clients to hold on to those as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just want to thank you all so much for inviting me into your team group. This has been so much fun, and it's great to actually have a dialogue, because usually I'm just yelling at everybody on the bike. So being able to have this dialogue, and if you ever have any questions, don't limit this to just this call, right? My door is always open. You guys have my Instagram. I'm here for you guys, and I just want to be as much of a resource to you all as I possibly can. So thank you all so much for having me.
Yeah. I'm going to close this in prayer real quick, and then we're going to take a picture. So don't get off, Jared.
Okay.
Okay, Lord, we just come to you tonight so thankful for this team, and just so thankful for hearts that are on fire, God, to just serve. We thank you for Jared and the serious calling that you have put on his life, God. It's just he showed up in one moment and the dominoes fell, and you just kept leveling up his life and just growing his influence, God, and people look to him and are inspired and can see themselves. And we just thank you, Lord, that we have people ahead of us who have gone and done it, who encourage us as coaches. And we are so thankful for this business that can bring all of us together, all of our different stories, and we can just encourage each other, hear from each other, grow on that. And I just pray, Lord, that we can be those people who can continue to level up, and we can continue to grow and push. And when times are hard, Lord, let us always remember those moments where we did it and where we showed up and where we accomplished. Let us not grow weary in serving, and always just find joy in the moments, God, and find joy in sharing our story so it can touch and encourage someone around us. So we thank you, God, for your love. We thank you for Jared and this call and this team, Lord. I just pray that you will bless our next month. Let our hands just be working for you, God, and lifting you up in everything that we do. We pray this in your name. Amen. Okay, let's get a boomerang. I don't know if I can get everybody on both pages, but I'll try. somebody else might also want to try in case I screw it up. Okay. One, y'all wiggle around because it's going to be boomerang. 1, 2, 3. Got it. Thank you
Thanks,
so
Jared.
much.
This is
Guys.
amazing.
Have a great night.
Thank you.
Y'all.
Bye, y'all.